Hello everyone, this is Tina from Tiaza's Treasures. Today I have July, my monthly Hero Arts kit. It is full of gnomes and mushrooms and some really cute sayings, and it always comes with all the dies you need. I cut them apart and colored everything up already. And I also got this additional add-on stamp set that I colored and used that on one of my cards as well. And I'm going to be using the Simon Says wood grain panel today, this wood grain background stamp. There's a wood grain background stamp that Heroes Arts came out with for add-ons this month. And because I already had this wood grain one, I'm just going to be using this. And I thought it'd be a good idea to make some frames using this Paper Rose dies, the frame dies from Paper Rose. So right now I'm just trying to see where they're going to fit on my page. And as you can see, I'm moving those off to the side. And I'm going to be stamping this background stamp using some Distress ink, the Vintage Photo distressed ink. And so I'm just kind of checking and lining up everything. I want my frames to look like they're wood, so that's why I am using this ink to stamp out. And I thought I could have used the espresso, but I thought that might be a little dark. And as it turns out, the Vintage Photo worked really well with this. You're going to see I've got 3 cards I'm making today, and I really like the way one of them turned out. And the other ones are fun, but they gave me a little bit of fits, a little bit here and there, not too much. I think my cards always have to fight with me, or I don't feel like I'm doing well. It's like, that was too easy, so that can't be right. No, always something's got to go on. So, I'm wiping off this big old stamp here. It's the first time I've used it, and I really like the way it looks. Now, for some reason, my ink is still wet. It didn't soak into the paper like I thought it would, so I used my heat tool to kind of dry that before I'm going to go ahead and die cut out these 2 frames. I'm going to use the 2 different size frames on 2 different cards. So I go ahead, I only need the one piece of cardstock for that, because I can fit them both on there, as you can see. So I can get 2 nice wood frames out of one 4.5 or 4.25 by 5.5 piece of cardstock here. All my cards are going to be A2, with the exception of this first one, which you'll see. You'll see as I end up kind of having to cut it down. So these are my 2 little frames here, my scalloped edge frames. And I am going to start by working on the first card. Obviously, you don't really usually start by working on the second. So I've got this piece of A2 cardstock here that I'm going to cut down to fit the frame. Now what I did in the background was I just took one of my my ink brushes, and I just used whatever ink was already on there, and I kind of just wanted something to look a little bit like sky. So I just used the ink, and some parts are darker than others, and I liked the way that looked. So I just kept that. Kind of looks a little bit like almost like a stormy sky to me. But once everything's on there, it really gives a nice background. So I'm taking a little bit of glue here, and I am gluing my little scene that I colored up. I didn't color anything on camera because number one, I'm not very good with Copic yet. I've been practicing and practicing. I colored out all of my stamped images the other night. I was going to have this video up for you like 2 nights ago, but I lost electricity in my house for no good reason for about 4 or 5 hours, and it was raining that day, so I couldn't see what I was doing to even color up anything. And I just ended up losing the entire day because there was not much I could do. And so by the time I got around to stamping out the images and coloring them, it was like 9 at night. And so, things just kind of got away with from me, and I finally got this taken care of. So as you can see here, I'm arranging all my little die cuts um, into a little bit into the frame there, and I've got the little river and the tree. And I really just like these long, I don't know if they're like blades of grass or just the greenery. I like the whimsical look of them. And so I just wanted to include them in with this background. So I'm kind of thinking, well, they could look more like they're on the front, or they just kind of give it a little bit of whimsy there. So I get everything arranged, and I start to glue down everything. Now, as you can see on the back of these images, all of them as a matter of fact, I had stamped out all my images prior, and I used my MISTI. And I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but I had everything in the corner of my MISTI, and I checked it once and I checked it twice, and I kept making sure I had everything well butted up in the corner of the MISTI. And the first stamping was a little light, so I decided to restamp it, and I still ended up double stamping. I had my paper taped down, and that happens to me more than I'd like to admit. And I don't know if I'm just somehow moving the paper as I'm pressing down, or what's going on. You'll have to tell me if that ever happens to any of you. And I mean, I am very careful with double checking now that I have everything butted up and in the same spot, because too often I still get my images double stamped, which is why I rarely will stamp out a whole sheet of stamps, because the you know the chance is I'll still end up double stamping things and messing it up. So that is why I have like images on the back of all my stamped images here. So I'm getting all this glued down, and you're going to see after it's all glued down, I was going to put this card on a regular size A2 card base. I figured that even though the frame was 5.5 inches long, it would go okay in the center of the card base with just a little bit of white on either side. But when I put it against the A2 card, I just didn't like the way it looked. Now I'm going to pop it up, so I don't know if that had something to do with it, but it really shouldn't have. It shouldn't have made any difference. And I think maybe if it was a, smaller all the way around, it would have been okay. But just with the two little white strips on either side, I did not like the way it looked at all. So I decided that I was going to just cut it down. So it was four, what is it? 3 3/4. I cut it down the card. So we ended up with a 5.5 by 3 3/4 inch card. So it's not exactly an A2 sized card, but I don't mind the size of the card itself. It's still a nice, fairly nice sized card. And I originally, too, have that piece of white paper off to the side there, white cardstock, because I was going to stamp on it, "You are very kind," and I was going to fussy cut that out and put that at the top of our card in the front. But I rethought it and decided that the front of the card was busy enough, especially since it was cut down, that I was just going to put the sentiment on the inside, which is what I ended up doing. And as you can see, I just stamped it off there, and I'm using the Hero Arts Intense Black ink, and it didn't stamp off on the inside as well as it did on the sheet of paper I stamped it off on first, which is kind of what always happens. So from here on out, I decided I was just going to use the VersaFine Onyx Black ink for my sentiments, which is what I ended up doing on the other two cards. So that was card number 1. So for card number 2, we're making a shaker card. Now I'm using that second smaller frame we made. And again, I've got a little bit of cardstock here that I had inked up, just using the ink that was already on my blender brush. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it to see how big how big the frame is, and then I'm going to cut it out here, and we're going to end up, that's going to be the back of our frame after we pop that up. So I get that all cut out there. My ace, all of a sudden I can't say acetate. So my acetate is cut out too. And I'm taking some double-sided tape and I'm putting that there on the back of my frame, because we want to get the acetate on there nice and centered. And as I'm getting ready to put the acetate on, it kind of falls on the frame before I'm ready to plop it down. But luckily it was almost centered, so I just had to cut off a little bit of the overhang in a spot. But it worked out rather well. Like I said, my cards like to fight back. You know, I think I enjoy making them, but they like to kind of sometimes give me a little bit of fits. So here's where I'm trying to line it up, and then all of a sudden it flips out of my fingers, so you can see it's just not as centered as I wanted. So I take off the tissue paper, and I'm gonna, I was debating on trying to pull it, but nope, it's gonna be fine. Nothing's gonna come out. So we get, I have some scrapbook.com tape strips here, and I'm not gonna double them up. I'm just gonna use the one tape strip all the way around. Well, I end up needing 2, but when I say 1, I mean a single layer. I'm gonna use a single layer of tape strip. And I got a little piece of black paper in there, so I was trying to shake that out. Shake it out. Doo-doo-doo. Okay. Yeah, we won't do that. Now I'm taking a little bit more of the strip here, getting that all in there, so our little sequin bits don't fall out. The Hero Arts kit this month came with these gorgeous sequins. Well, like confetti, not so much sequins as star confetti. And this is the second time a kit's had these in the past year, and it's just so gorgeous, this stuff. It's got stars, 2 different shaped like stars, and it's kind of iridescent and silvery, and it's just really pretty. And the kit also came with the ink cubes, 3 ink cubes, and some washi tape with mushrooms on it, which I think would be really fun for like envelopes, or I guess you could use it for cards as well. So I'm putting some of this in there. There is a lot still left over. And just make sure, if you're going to pour it out of the bag, you flip over that glue strip so you don't end up with everything stuck to it, to the strip. Kind of fold that over first. So I get my little background lined up on there. And now we're going to turn that over, and we're going to shake it. Come on now, pat it down. Yep, shake it. And now for this, I am going to go ahead, and I decide that I want to use a craft cardstock for the base. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue the shaker right pretty much in the center. And I have everything kind of where I want. And I think at this point I'm deciding, well, which sentiment do I want to use? And I decide I'm going to use You're One of a Kind. And I'm going to stamp that right to the card base with the Onyx Black ink that I told you I was going to use earlier. I put that on my little stamp block, and I'm going to take a leap of faith that it's going to turn out well. And my leap of faith actually worked in this case. Get that all centered up there on the bottom. There we go. Get that pressed in. I wanted to make sure I got this video out for you tonight because I am going to be in Phoenix for the next few days. Now, what made me decide to go to Phoenix in July, I don't know. Out of my mind, maybe. Actually, there's a ball game I want to watch this weekend there. So my husband and I like to kind of go out and around the country sometimes and catch the Cubs at different ballparks. And my sister lives in Phoenix, and we've gone to spring training before out there in Mesa, but this will be the first time I'm going to watch an actual regular season game with the Diamondbacks and the Cubs. Obviously, we didn't go to a single ball game last year, and we haven't been to one this year either, so this will be fun. Unfortunately, the Cubs decided they were going to start losing about the time I bought tickets. So, you know, it could be my fault. They're like, nope. They've really done poorly since all of June. They were like number one going into June, and then they just blew it. I think we're in third place now. So anyway, I'm sure you don't want to hear about that. Not everybody is as big into baseball as me. So here is card number 3, and this is my favorite card. So I've got these 3 little hills that I cut out just using paper in my stash. So I've got 3 different greens, and I just freehanded little hills, and I've got all these little mushrooms and little gnome homes that I colored up too the other night. So I'm getting everything glued down. Now once I get everything glued, I decide that I want to trim this card base down. And so right now it's 5.5 by 4.25, and I am going to cut it down to 4.25 or 5.25 by 4. So we're going to get the bottom green trimmed a little bit, 1/4 inch off that way, and a little bit off both sides. And I'm going to glue that onto a craft card base too. I just think it really adds something, just to kind of, I don't know if it's homey. I guess you could use that word, but I just like the way it looks with the gnomes. You can see I tried making clouds first on the other side, and it was like, nope, didn't work too well. And everybody I watch, their clouds always look really good. Mine always look like, why are these clouds blue? I thought clouds were white. If you use blue and then, you move down a bit, it just doesn't always look that good to me. So I've got this little tree stump there, and I'm going to glue on top of it the little house because I want to be able to use the little ladder, and it works. There's a gnome on a ladder, which is what I'm looking for right now, and I want to be able to use the gnome on the ladder. So it takes me a few seconds. It's not, again, my cards fight with me, and I always lose something during filming. And this is me losing my little guy on the ladder. Now, I did end up finding it, moving everything all over the place. Now, there it is. I found it right off to the side. So I get that glued on. And this card is going to just be jam-packed. This scene, it's just got a lot of little florals and like 3 different gnomes on it and 2 different gnome homes. And that's why I needed all the little hills too, because I wanted to kind of make them on different levels. I thought about doing this with a slim line, but I kind of wanted everything to be really close together. And now I'm kind of trying to fit in this bluebell, and I'm going to have to like move up my little plant off the tree stump a bit because I decide that I want that bluebell to be behind it a little bit. And I don't care how much, you put everything down and think you know where everything's going. It still always seems like things get a little bit rearranged once you actually glue them down. So I get the bluebell all glued on, which I think that bluebell is really pretty. I like all the florals that came in this kit this month. And I do like, I like the little mushroom as well with the little red tops. I've seen some really amazing cards made with these, and I'm just doing my best to try to make some that are passable. So I hope you like them. But this one, it's just the colors are so bright and cheerful. It is, out of the three, my favorite. So we're going to glue down my little gnome. And I was a little bit, leery about gluing the different pieces on top, so I've got them layered up, but it doesn't end up really being a problem. I think it kind of gives the cards some extra weight and dimension. So after I get all of these pieces glued down, I decide I'm going to use the sentiment, "There's no place like Nome." And again, I'm going to take a leap of faith, and I am going to stamp with the Onyx Black ink right up there on the top. Now, if it would have smeared or it wouldn't have come out right, I would have ended up just taking a strip of paper and restamping on top of that and then gluing it on. So I had a backup plan. Luckily, I didn't have to use it because I kind of wanted the blue sky and the clouds to come through. So this is card number 3, and I think it's so cheerful and pretty with all the different greens and the blues and the reds and the pinks, and so there we go. And now I didn't decorate any of the insides of these yet. I may come back and do it. I still have a few more colored die cuts. But I hope you enjoyed watching this and my rambling wasn't too bad. If you like this video, please subscribe. Bye-bye, everyone.